and welcome to the ADHD Unfiltered podcast. We are co-hosts Cherry and Emma, and we share an unfiltered look into our lives with ADHD and how it impacts us and our guests.
We are both mums with raging ADHD who've created a podcast that is funny, relatable and safe, whilst also providing information that can hopefully help you to enjoy a better quality of life. Whether you're a parent or not, this podcast will have something for you.
We hope you stick around and enjoy the episode, and please also don't forget to give us a follow or subscribe, because it really helps us keep doing what we do.
Thank you for listening and enjoy.
Hello. And welcome to episode 12 of the ADHD Unfiltered podcast. Yay!
Yay! We're a bit hyper, aren't we? Actually,
We're a bit hyper. We're powered up, charged up, ready to go.
We are.
Yeah.
We've just filmed one. We're filming another. We are unstoppable.
We're on a roll.
We really are.
But
we're going to just talk about self-care and routines on this episode.
Absolutely. Routines, are something that a lot of people with ADHD struggle with, that kind of consistency, etc. And it's actually also one of the reasons why people sometimes make that false assumption that people just need to try harder who've got ADHD, because they're like, well, you were able to focus and do well that one day. Why are you not able to do it right now? Why are you not able to do it today? Why haven't you been able to be productive this hour when you've been able to be so productive last week? Those sort of things, and actually there are studies, and I'm sorry, I'm diving right in.
We're going straight in with the facts.
there are studies that actually show there's a reduced blood flow to the brain the more people with ADHD try to focus on something. The more we try to focus and to do something, the less we're able to. Can you imagine?
Oh my gosh!
Like that all the time, that tip of like, oh, you just need to try harder, actually does exactly the opposite. The more we try, the less we're able to do it. Literally,
which
from
explains
a
that
brain point of
frustration.
view. Yes.
Yeah, because I can vividly remember being in school and actually being told, you can do this, you just need to try, you need to focus, and being sat there like really trying to listen and think about what they're telling me, especially maths, and getting more and more irate because the more that I tried, the less anything made sense. It almost like everything just became scrambled and nothing was really going on in my brain. And I felt really silly. I felt really like I was lazy. And that was my fault. But our brains are just not work that way.
Absolutely. And I even thought to myself, well, why can I not do it right now? Why could I do it the other day and right now I can't do anything? Or why could I do it just like half an hour ago? Now it's not working. And I had that almost like ingrained, that thought, thinking of like, well, that just means I'm faking it. I must be lazy. I must not be trying hard enough, because clearly I can do it.
Yeah. Oh, the shame that we put ourselves through because of that type of thinking that we're conditioned to believe. When if we just had this understanding of our brains, as a young adult, I just wonder what difference our lives would look like. And I know there are people who've been diagnosed as a child and unfortunately didn't get support. But imagine if there was support out there for everyone, and we were taught how to work with our brains rather than against them. I just feel like we'd have such different opportunities presented to us than what we've had.
And even just when you said, oh, I wished that there was better support out there, can I say, even just the whole diagnostic process, the pathway is so ADHD unfriendly.
Oh,
it makes me really angry, actually, really frustrated, because the way it's set up is actually quite discriminating against people with ADHD. You have to jump through so many hoops, loops, difficulties, hurdles to even get in front of specialists and get assessed unless you go private.
Yeah, and I personally think that they do that on purpose to deter people from trying to get the help, because they don't have the funding and they don't implement the funding to provide that support. And it's like a deterrent, which it's just disgusting if that is the case.
Absolutely. And we tend to struggle with imposter syndrome anyway, and like kind of gaslighting a little bit, or is it really ADHD? Maybe I'm just faking it.
I still
Maybe it's
do
not
that.
really it. Yeah. And
Literally still.
bless you.
It,
And
it,
and
it's
and imagine
sorry,
the amount of
just
times.
interrupting.
That's okay. I don't mind. I interrupt too. We know each other.
I know, but I just did it
Don't
like
you
4 times.
apologize anymore.
I'm
Oh, I didn't
sorry.
even notice.
Oh,
And the amount of people that will have stopped seeking help and support
mm,
halfway, or I'd have messages sometimes saying like, oh, I finally had the courage to go to my GP and they were so dismissive.
oh, yeah.
And it really breaks my heart, because you don't go to your doctor, to your GP, because you're fine. You
No.
go because you're struggling. You're clearly struggling with something, whether that's ADHD or not. It can be, something that has ADHD like symptoms, but might be something else. It could also very well be ADHD.
Mm,
And, just having some answers on what it is will enable you to get the right support.
yeah. But
Um,
the fact that they dismiss that is going against their duty of care to figure out what's going on. Okay, you can dismiss ADHD, but what is it?
mm,
Like, that's what they're not doing. They're not going, let's look at other
yeah,
avenues here. And
absolutely.
that's worrying. And no wonder there are so many of us out there with no routines, no
Mm,
support, no structure in place, because we're not given that path easily, and it's not accessible for most people to actually
yeah.
get the support that they need. And that's in terms of therapy as well. There's not
Mm.
many therapists out there
Who
that are
are
neurodivergent,
specialist?
aware
Yeah,
of it. Yeah. And
absolutely.
therefore, it's so hard to find ways to accommodate yourself if you don't even
Yeah.
understand what's going on.
Which is why coaching can be actually quite helpful, ADHD coaching.
Yes.
But hopefully, listening to our podcast will give you a little bit some insight into some strategies as well, because at the very beginning, before you even, look into putting strategies, any sort of strategies in place for ADHD, it's really important that you're able to know how to put in a routine for yourself. Because think of it, if you're trying to implement strategies but don't have but you're not able to put routines in place or keep them up, then you're probably not going to be likely to keep those strategies up that help you.
Yeah.
And the problem with routines is it has a very kind of catch-22 relationship with ADHD, because we need routines in our lives. Routines make our lives easier because we don't have to put the steps in place, with effort to do everything. Because
Mhm.
when as a routine, it's kind of automatic. You don't have to think about it. But the
It's
problem
just you
with
just do it.
routines is they're also kind of boring.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
ADHDers crave novelty, and routines are the pretty much opposite of novelty.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's a very catch-22, not having routines in place makes it more difficult to manage ADHD symptoms, but then putting routines in place is difficult because of your ADHD symptoms.
It,
So
it's just so
it's like,
difficult to work with that. I mean, on my part as well, I have
mhm,
routines that stem from anxiety. So my
yeah,
it, it's usually the routines that I have is leaving the house at exactly the same time each morning to take my son to school, because I know that that time gets us there on time when the gates open. And if I leave 1 minute later than that routine, I am flipping out and I am flappy, when really it's not that big of a deal. But that's like anxiety, potentially autistic traits of not wanting to be late,
mhm,
and being very aware of that. But the ADHD in me will be sat on my phone until the last minute,
mhm,
procrastinating, and then flailing around, getting my shoes, my coat, the boys' coats on, and not being prepared. And it's so frustrating, because that one side of my brain is like very much, I want to do this, I need to do this. But the ADHD side is, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. I'll do it in a minute. I'll do it in a minute. It's fine. And when you push them together, it's just this perpetual state of frustration,
yeah.
exhaustion, and chaos, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can think of it like the executive dysfunction aspect really coming into play here, because your brain has got difficulties knowing and planning every single step that is needed for something to do. So, for example, to get ready to do the school drop off, to get ready for bed, those sort of things. And the outcome is that you're often stuck in what feels like procrastination, but might actually
Mm.
be more ADHD paralysis,
Mhm.
until the sense of urgency is so overwhelming that your brain kicks into gear. And it really makes it difficult to then kind of put any routines or keep them up, because routines are often done kind of in a specific order, in a specific time window, and if you get stuck scrolling on your phone, sitting on your bed, or do whatever, then that all kind of falls out of place. And
Yeah.
it kind of goes with the ADHD all or nothing, because for me, I'll have often tried to implement like what looks like my ideal almost like nighttime routine or whatever,
Yeah.
like self-care routine. And but the moment that I'm not able to keep it up or do exactly how I imagined it, I'm just like, well, I might as well just not do it at all.
Yes,
Like,
you fall
same
off
with
the wagon.
absolutely, same with exercising, for example. You
Mhm.
know, I'm like, everyone is like, oh, you can do like any kind of exercise counts. I'm like, no, it
Yeah.
has to be high intensive. Otherwise, I might as well not do it at all. Like,
Yes.
what's the
Yeah.
point?
Yeah. It's
And
all or nothing, exactly
literally
what you
all or
said.
nothing. And people, I used to go to this pain management group for pelvic pain, like endometriosis,
Yeah.
and there was an OT that was there to kind of manage or try to kind of help you with your daily kind of plans, aspects, etc. And there was always me who was being like, they were like, oh, trying to incorporate some self-care, and even moving, going for a walk counts as exercise. And
Yeah.
then they'd be coming to me and they'd be like, so what's your plan, what's your, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I think I'm going to go to the gym. I also might go swimming, and I really really want to clean and tidy the entire house. And they're like, it doesn't have to be everything. And I'm like, yeah, it does.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
And then
gosh, it's
and
yeah.
then they talk, and then we'd have the catch up, and they're like, oh, so what did you do? Did you do all of that? Because I feel
Mm.
like you're one of the very few people that I have to say don't make plans.
Yeah.
Like, don't
Yeah.
don't put so many strategies in place, because you're
Yeah.
really putting too much in there that you
It's
can't
a lot of
maintain.
pressure. Yeah.
And I'd often be there and be like, well, I did work out, but the house didn't get done
No.
because,
No.
I didn't have enough time. Or like they'd be like, oh, you can, you can just do like 15 minutes of like cleaning and decluttering. I'm like, no, no, I'll do the
Yeah.
whole house in one
Exactly.
go.
I wish when people say things like that, I'm like, can you really do 15
I
minutes? Because
can't.
for me, it's like earlier I had my ASDA delivery and I was like, okay, I'm very aware that I need to put this away. In that process, it got to me doing all of the other tasks in that
Mm,
room other than that because I'd got so sidetracked by, oh, the washing, I need to move that to the dryer, I need to move that from the dryer up there. And then the food was just on the floor, stuff that needed to go in the freezer for like an hour. And it
yeah.
got to the point where I was just like, why can't I just do one task at a time? It's like I overload my brain. And that's the
Mm.
same with routines. It's like I'm a competitive person. So with myself, so I'll be like,
Mhm.
you know, when it comes to weight loss in the past, it was so unhealthy because I'd be all or nothing. So I'd be like, right, I'm changing my diet completely from this to
Literally.
this.
Oh my
And
God, I
then
used to
I'd
be
wonder
so
why I fell
extreme.
off. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
it'd last about a couple of weeks. I'd
Or
lose a decent amount, but then I would go off the wagon and go worse again because I kind of held myself back from
yeah.
something which doesn't work with our brains very well.
Or I'd be like, oh, I have to exercise on exactly those days, and if I can't, well,
Mm,
then I might as well, then I just can't exercise this week, and then
yeah.
I'm a failure. I'm a person,
Oh, the
and
perfectionism as well.
absolutely. And then I had it the other week. I felt under the weather. It's like I'm really not feeling like exercising, and I have a lovely PT. And she was like, if you don't, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to exercise if you're under the weather. Sometimes resting can be really helpful and is
Mhm.
necessary. And And I was like, well, that's just me now being fallen off the wagon. I don't have to restart.
Yeah.
That was
Oh,
my
yeah.
thinking. And then I almost like had some anxieties of going back into the gym, because I'm like, oh, it's been so long now. I
Yeah.
don't even know what to do. You know, maybe I've gotten so weak, and it's really easy to forget what works for you, if you don't consistently do it.
And that's it. That consistency is the problem for me. I mean, skincare is something that I always try
Mm,
and have a routine with, because I mean, I'm turning 32 in December. I'm aware that at this point wrinkles and all that start
mm,
appearing, and I had really bad skin as a teenager, and now my skin's okay, and I like to look after it. But what will happen as I'll go in for about 2 weeks, when I'll buy new products, and I'll buy, at this point I've got
oh.
like so many different little, I don't even know what they do or who they are, but I'm using them, and I'm like in this hyperfixation mode, which again comes
Mm,
into it of hyperfixations. Is it a healthy routine? Is it a hyperfixation? I don't know.
yeah,
And
and that's
I'll one day where I'll feel a bit under the weather, or I'm not in the
mhm.
mood, or I forget, and that's it. I'm like, well, that's it. Done.
Yeah,
I've finished now because I didn't stick with it. And
absolutely.
it's silly.
It's I really want to show you, but I'd have to stand up. But basically, me and my partner, we were like, right, we need routines in place, because we're both neurodiverse,
Mm.
slash both have ADHD, and our house is a SHIT show. Um, I'll have to mark
Same.
it as explicit if we swear. So it's just,
Yeah.
I'm trying not to.
Damn.
Anyway.
I'm so sorry. I actually didn't even. So sorry. I'll edit that.
That's
I
all right.
didn't even think that was. Uh,
I'd love
gosh.
to swear more, to be honest. Maybe we should just mark it as
Maybe we
explicit.
should.
Anyway, so we were like, well, how have we gone for 8 years? 8 years. We've like, well, almost 8 years we've been living together, 7.5. We got together 8 years ago. And neither of us have ever thought about putting a routine in place of
No.
like household chores to do. And so I ordered this magnetic board to like put in
Oh,
routines, daily chores, weekly chores,
yeah.
monthly. It's filled. It's full. And I look at it, I'm like, how is that realistic? This is not realistic at all. It's like the whole
Oh,
all or nothing again. So
yes.
Ash has done really well with his routines. I've been, you
Oh,
know,
no. Yeah.
and there's again the perfectionist in me that I yesterday I snapped a bit at him.
Mm, yeah.
You think about it, it's a ridiculous reason to snap anyway. But my daughter fell asleep on the way home. I come home and he's hoovering, in her room, and I'm there trying to keep her asleep, carrying her up,
Yeah.
because
Oh,
it was 7 p.m.
yeah.
and I was like, she's waking up. And so I snapped at her and I was like, you turn that off.
He,
He's like,
he
okay.
woke the beast in you. Yeah.
And then he turned it off. I put her to bed. All good. I come downstairs. I was like, why did you think of hoovering at 7 p.m.? And he was like, I thought you'd be grateful that I hoovered.
It's on
The
the
next thing,
routine.
it's on the routine. And I'm like, and he was like, I did this to in the thought process of
Oh,
making you happy, and now you
yeah.
have a go at me. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
It's,
I was very
yeah.
overstimulated and
Yeah.
dysregulated. I
Easily
apologize.
done.
Anyway, but he was like, I know you so well. I bet you're there also thinking, looking at me doing my routines, thinking you haven't done yours, thinking that you
Oh,
feel like a failure, that you feel like SHIT, that you're less good than me. And I'm like, can you stop reading me?
yeah. That's like, and that's why
And
it's
that was
triggered you.
exactly it. That was exactly it.
Yeah.
Because I felt so guilty yesterday for not, I didn't go to the gym despite that it was on my planner. I didn't do the hallway decluttering despite that it was on my planner. And I didn't do
Mm,
the kitchen despite that it was on my planner.
yeah.
And I felt so guilty. Oh, and I didn't
Mm,
walk the dog because despite that it was on my planner.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just that mix. But anyway,
But it's
There
hard to
are
stick to. It's very hard.
Absolutely. And I think some of the reasons why routines often don't work is one, because they overwhelm us, one, they feel
Yeah.
too rigid, then obviously we have those perfectionist tendencies anyway. But there are things that you can do to develop a routine that might actually work for you. So I want you to think of a specific time in your day, or a specific thing where you're like, this isn't working. Like, whatever I've got in place is not working. I need to like develop something new. Let's say you have this evening routine of where you scroll on your phone for ages until it's like 1 a.m. And then you're like, oh no, it's so late. I need to sleep.
Mm,
So that might be one, where you could put a routine in place, for example, and try and put a routine in place to get yourself ready to sleep. And the problem is, we often think of just ideal routines. So our very ideal routines aren't the most realistic routines, and probably aren't the routines that are going to work for us,
yeah.
because routines very much reflect your energy levels, and with ADHD they're up and down all the time.
Mm,
They're not as linear as for neurotypicals. I mean, neurotypical energy levels aren't very linear either, but the ups and downs aren't as extreme for ADHD is.
yeah.
And trying to therefore develop different routines that can work for different energy levels can be really, really helpful, and can make you feel less guilty as well, and less like all or nothing. So
Yeah.
let's say you want to put a basic routine in place, like the routine that you currently have in place that maybe is like your lowest energy level, like burnout routine, that sort of stuff. Think of a way that you can maybe ever so slightly tweak it without having to put more energy into it. That should be your lowest routine, like your very,
Yes.
very basic. Then you want to develop your ideal routine. Okay, so write it all out. What do you want to do in the evening? What would be your really perfect routine, right? It could be like those Instagram routines, whatever. that
Yeah.
that might be what you think of. And then I want to think of the most realistic, the average energy level routine, where you might tweak some things from your basic routine, maybe improve them ever so slightly. So
Yeah.
instead of having, like, I don't know, screen time until you fall asleep, maybe have stop screen time 15 minutes before you go to bed. Those
Yes.
little tweaks, and then takes them from your ideal routine and think of ways that you can maybe incorporate it less extreme. So rather,
Mm-hmm.
instead of like doing a whole skincare routine, maybe just wash your face, or
Yeah.
just remove your makeup, those sort of things,
Yeah.
if that's not already in your base routine. And that might be your most realistic routine for your average energy levels.
That makes so much sense of thinking about where you are with your energy, because I do think that is, like we said, with the all or nothing. I have a very good friend who I think will be listening to this. She listens to our episodes. So if you are listening, then I am not calling you out here, I promise. But she will know. She's very all or nothing when it comes to
Mm.
her food, and she will cut loads of things out at once, and then
Mhm.
often could be quite overwhelmed. She's also ADHD and in the process of getting a diagnosis for autism. And she says herself, she puts all this pressure on herself that she can't maintain. And I think that's
Mhm.
it, is it's because you're putting that pressure on yourself that on day one, of course, you might be thriving with that. I'm thinking, yes, but your
Mhm.
consistency and your energy is going to waver and fluctuate. And it's going to be really difficult to maintain that very challenging routine that you've set yourself that's so starkly different to
Yeah,
what you usually do. And I think that's what we go wrong with as ADHDers, is we often see the opposite of where we
mm,
are and think that's what I need to be, that's what I need to do, or I
mm,
need to change all these things. And you're going to burn yourself out very quickly. And with regards to the
absolutely.
skincare as well, what I have tried to do is, if I'm on that low energy day, so
Mm,
I'm already kind of doing it without realizing, is I'll keep baby wipes in my bedroom, so that if I've
yeah,
had a day where I really don't have the energy to do that skincare, I can at least wipe my makeup off. And
yeah,
I think you've got to realize that you're not a superhero. You're not always going to be able to maintain that level that you expect of yourself. And that's okay. And that shouldn't stop
absolutely.
you setting like these little routines that could really improve the quality of your
Yeah.
life, hopefully.
The other thing that could be very helpful is you might have all these, you have these routines outlined, but often we might forget steps and stuff like that. And so having little visual reminders can be really helpful. Well,
Yes.
one way of doing it is, if you don't mind having post-it notes in your house, if you don't have
Hmm.
children, that'll take them off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
um,
Yeah.
have post-it notes where your routine starts, and maybe even group it all together, like little bits of your routine that take place in the bathroom. Do that all whilst you're in the
Mm,
bathroom. Try and maybe habit chunk a little bit of where whilst you're brushing your teeth, you're also, I don't know, removing your makeup. Well,
yeah.
actually, that
Well,
doesn't really work.
like an octopus with 8 legs doing everything at once.
Well, habit chunk is a little bit better, but
Well, you could.
I
Yeah,
often do,
I get
like,
what you mean.
I often use the toilet whilst I'm brushing my teeth.
I've done that
Little
too.
TMI here, but
Yeah.
that's like just a little, like, routine chunking, of combining two things that kind of go
Yeah.
together
Also
and
in the
makes it a little
shower,
bit
people
time
do.
efficient.
Yeah.
Absolutely, brush your teeth in the shower, those
Yeah.
sort of things. Or if you do want to scroll and you really want to do like a teeth whitening or something, then have teeth whitening whilst you scroll.
Yeah.
There are ways to make it work. um but it is also kind of being a bit creative, and not as rigid as you think routines might need to be. They don't
No.
need to be as rigid.
Realistic as well. I think,
Yeah.
you mentioned like the Instagram routines. Wouldn't it be lovely if we all were able to have that kind of
Mm,
lifestyle? But they're recording that, my loves. Then that's probably not even their routine every day. They're
most likely
recording that
not.
for that content. And I think it's so important to be realistic of, not everyone has the capacity for that, and it might look wonderful being able to put a face mask on every night and even just run a bath, but sometimes even
Mm,
that is a lot of energy and a lot of spoons to use if you're
yeah.
someone who struggles with chronic fatigue as well. So sometimes, if it means, like what Cherry said, of making it simpler and just doing the simple things that you need, rather than those full on, like a bath and lighting candles because you think that's self-care and that you need to. Sometimes actually that's not self-care, that's putting pressure
Yeah.
on yourself to do something that you think is good for
Mm,
you, that might not actually help.
it's very
And
true.
you've just got to be connected with yourself. And my personal thing that I like to do to help myself, like take care of myself, which is where you need to start with before you even put routines in
Mm,
place, really, is self-care of checking in with
just,
yourself.
yeah, self-compassion.
Grounding, yeah, you've got to be grounded. And I'm not just saying that in a sense of
Mm.
like, standing naked barefoot in a field somewhere to ground yourself. Like, you don't have to be full on. You can just take time. It's so dramatic way of explaining it. But you can
I
just
just
take time
imagined
to,
myself like standing naked
yeah,
somewhere.
just chanting like,
I
I am
think
grounded.
I feel like some people might call the police.
Yeah, I don't think that would look the most
I'm
mentally
sorry.
sane.
I'm such a visual. Like, I
Yeah.
always like think so visually. Sorry. You
I
crack
just
on.
imagine the
I
farmer
interrupted
finding
you.
you in the field, thinking it's a scarecrow coming up to him and be like, whoa, oh, whoa, sorry about that. But
Just doing
anyway,
some grounding.
don't mind me. You carry on sowing your seeds, mate. But that really escalated. But with regards to grounding,
Trying.
it's
Oh.
we just lost the plot. Grounding is where you oh god. Everyone's gonna be like, they have lost the plot, they are unhinged.
Look, I'm actually laughing. I'm crying. Oh, dear.
Are you
Okay.
okay?
I don't even know why I'm
Uh,
laughing so much.
I've
Anyway.
gone all sweaty. I'm going to
Me
need to
too.
ground after this. I've got myself all hyper. Yeah, the
Oh
reason
God.
why grounding is important.
I'm gonna switch off my mic now.
Oh, guys. Right. Whilst Cherry is composing herself, and I can still see her laughing on the screen. As I was saying, grounding is important for anyone, but when you've got, I just cover. I'm covering the screen because I keep laughing at Cherry. When you've got a lot of high
Okay, I'm
energy
back.
and you're back, when you when you've got a lot of high energy and you're easily overstimulated, uh, grounding yourself is simply just a mindful kind of practice of imagining what I like to do, deep roots going from my feet into the ground, rooting me back to the earth, keeping my head out of the clouds, and just imagining that I'm kind of like clearing out all the bad, what I don't need, and taking a few minutes to just let your she's still laughing.
Sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me.
I just look and I'm like, but yes, making sure that you're tuning in with your body as is the first step of self-care. Because if you're not tuned in and you've got no idea what's going on, whether you're coming or going, what are you going to do to make yourself feel better? You don't know because you
Yeah,
don't know what you need. So that's a huge thing for me, is just grounding myself. Even if it's listening to music, that's actually a really good grounding
absolutely.
practice. And it can be your favorite music, or it can be, I like to listen to like specific, you type them in on Spotify or Google where it's like healing music, and I don't know the exact words, but it's just nice. It sounds all tinkly stuff. Laughing in the screen.
Trying to keep it together.
To the plot. That is, I think, a huge important thing. And you know what? Also, to sometimes adding into your routine, this is making me think with laughter, is
Mhm.
actually things that make you laugh, even if it's watching your favorite program every night before you go to bed.
Yeah,
Laughter is the best medicine, as they say, and adding that into your
absolutely.
self-care routine and just life in general. Don't forget to
Something.
make
Mhm.
just nice things. Are you okay?
I'm okay. I swear. Um, Something that I wanted to say was as well, what can be really helpful is having a journal. And I know that can
Yeah.
sound overwhelming in itself, but maybe try and like do it, just so that it doesn't feel overwhelming. Let's say like once a week,
Mm.
and you journal a little bit, because it can make you really aware of, things that go well, but also things that maybe aren't, you know, you struggle with a little bit, that
Yeah.
you weren't even aware of, because our brains just, they're so
Yeah.
fast, and we tend to forget things, and then that kind of passive progress processing doesn't always happen, and sometimes we need to actively process
Yeah.
to be able to like put better things in place, and things that make us
Absolutely.
happier.
And if
Uh,
writing is overwhelming, you can
mhm.
always record it on your phone,
Yes,
whether it's you
such a
recording a
good idea.
video, yeah, or a voice memo, and no one ever has to listen or see that, just you.
I
That
like
could be a
that.
really easy way of doing it if you can't be bothered to write, because we've spoke about this before, of finding that we can't write as quick as we think as
Hmm.
well. So that's an option.
Absolutely. And that way, you might even find that you get a nice collection of things that, you feel good about, that make you feel
Yeah.
happy. Because as I said, unfortunately, it can also be easy to forget what makes you happy, what gives you
Oh
like a
yeah.
nice little dopamine boost.
Yeah.
And, with the grounding, my favorite ever strategy is like a mindfulness strategy, where you close your eyes. Most of the time, the best time that it works is in nature. So if you have a garden, or
Hmm.
if you can just open the window, don't lean too far out.
Just don't, yeah, don't
But
lean out your window and fall, please.
it's closing your eyes, and without putting any labels on it, so without naming what you hear, listen out for all the different sounds that are there. And
Mm,
it's really hard to do, actually, because you automatically label, oh, that's a bird, that's the leaves rattling, and you start to imagine, label all of that. But when it becomes really mindful is when you can just take in the sounds without picturing anything with it.
mm,
Just really focus on everything that you can hear. And the reason why I'm saying to not label, or the reason why the advice is to not label, is because as soon as we put a label on things, we automatically make assumptions. We have like different kind of connotations or presumptions around things, and then our brains can often go back into kind of spiraling about different things, etc. So
yeah.
when we don't even put a label onto things, we can really try and get quite mindful, but it is difficult to do. So it takes some practice. But
Yes,
that usually makes me the happiest, actually.
I think that's a lovely way. Like, I think that's why I like sitting in the garden. Actually, is
Mm.
just I love listening to the birds. I love listening to just the sounds that go by. And I think,
Yeah.
you know, self-care routines do not have to be extravagant, and routines to make your life better can sometimes include having a coffee in the
Hmm.
garden and having 5 minutes of time to just think and
Yeah.
dissociate if you want to, and let your brain get all its thoughts out of the way.
Yeah.
But journaling can help with that, of where do I need some work here? What am I
Hmm.
struggling with? And what can I do to improve it? And hopefully then you can find some, ways that can really help you enjoy your life and feel a little bit more together. I think that's something I struggle with, is
Mm.
feeling like I am not really stable in a routine or life in itself. And sometimes I feel like I'm kind of running around like a headless chicken,
Mm.
and trying to just bring in those little bits of routine in can really help to dilute that feeling a little bit. So it's definitely beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love daydreaming as well. Like, even like stimming freely can also make me quite
Yeah,
happy. There's loads of
me
different
too.
ways of doing things. And
Yeah,
yeah,
do what
you
works
don't
for
have to
you.
do like the things that you think of when you think of self care.
No.
Sometimes, as Emma said, they are not actually self care for you.
No, it's all about what works for you. I've just noticed the whole podcast episodes, I've not addressed, if people are watching it, my microphone and how it looks so. It's literally someone's bit it. I don't know who did it. Someone bit it. I'm going to assume it was my toddler, probably, but it just looks the epitome of an ADHD podcast, because it's just, why have I even got it on? It doesn't even do anything now. But we'll end the episode here because we're still on 35 minutes. We've done 2 episodes, but we've managed to keep it pretty much around the
Absolutely.
30-minute mark, and I'm proud of
Yes.
us.
I am as well. And I think that's another thing, bringing in affirmations, and really, hyping yourself up. Be
Oh,
your
yeah,
own
you
hype
deserve it.
man, woman. Yeah.
Well, do you know what? I'm going to mention it before we leave. We
Hmm.
are soon going to be having a Patreon where you can become a patron. Is that what you say? Patron? You can
Yeah.
sign up, and we'll be doing extra content. We'll be doing body doubling sessions. We'll
Hmm.
be doing tidy and organizing. We'll
We'll be
probably
doing
be
some
just doing
live
some random.
Q&A.
Yeah, we'll be doing like all these like fun little things, extra little bits of content to just
Yeah.
get to know you as our audience better, to have a bit of fun, and to find
And
things that, and be your like cheerleaders and help, you
absolutely.
know, give you affirmations and help pump you up and get you excited and to
Yeah.
enjoy life.
Absolutely, absolutely, and also, there'll be different tiers. So not tears as in
We're not going to be
crying,
crying,
no.
hopefully.
um, where you can choose what works for you, what you feel like would be helpful for you, and I'm really really excited to also be able to kind of connect with you guys a little bit
Yeah,
more, and to have you guys say, have a bigger say in things as well.
absolutely.
And
So
it'll
that will be
obviously
available
help
soon.
us continue doing what we're doing as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a perfect way to support the podcast if you enjoy it, and also for us to help support you and get to know the
Yeah,
listeners a little bit better. So exciting, and we'll post more about that soon, so keep a lookout for that.
absolutely.
And we'll see you in the next episode.
Yes. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.